Welcome into HQ Postgame presented by Crown Royal. This season, Crown Royal is supporting the local communities that serve us off the field at kickoffwithcrown.com. Joe Musso alongside CBS college football analyst Emory Hunt. Emory, let's see how the Iron Bowl went down in the final minutes of a thrilling contest. 4 overtimes type final moments. TJ Finley on a bum knee. 2-point conversions going back and forth. The new overtime format. Finley, no. Broken up by Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid can be sticky, they say, Emory.
But it also can be sweet.
That it is. And now with a chance to win the game, Bryce Young to who else? John Mechie in a one-on-one scenario gets in. The Tide rise late and come all the way back to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. Let's not get ahead of ourselves because that's what it looked like they were doing here on Saturday. But in the end, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 24, Auburn Tigers 22. The Tigers had a 10-0 lead in the fourth quarter. It was a field goal with about 8:30 left, and then a 12-play, 97-yard drive with about 1:40 left on the clock, punctuated by Bryce Young, who was 25 of 51 in this one, 317, 2 touchdowns, tied it at 10, went to overtime. 4 overtimes later, the Tide back on top, 24-22. Let's head back out to the stadium where our Jamie Erdahl caught up with Coach Saban.
Coach, we talked at halftime about how challenging this game was going for you guys, but in the end, how much pride do you have in the execution you just saw from your team?
I can't tell you. I can't put it into words. I mean, for the guys to keep fighting like they did and to have the 90-some-yard drive to tie the game up to get it in overtime. But I tell you what, the players, I'm so proud of the way they competed in the game and fought. We said that's what we wanted to do at halftime, and I couldn't be prouder of them. I mean, it was unbelievable.
You addressed your team several times during some very emotional moments during the game. What were you saying to them in those moments?
Well, I was really just trying to get our guys to just focus on executing. You know, I think they were a little bit out of sorts, and I could kind of see it in their eyes, so I just wanted them to go play. I told them to have fun at halftime. I said, just go have fun, man. Quit worrying about the result, and let's just go have fun.
At what point did that become fun for you?
Right when we caught the ball.
I'll let you go celebrate, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so a sigh of relief and a laugh from Coach Saban, which is not always the case, but a rising tide, it can break all hearts. That's what this young man did in the final quarter. Through 3 quarters, Bryce, 0 points, 12 of 26, 106, no touchdowns and interception, but Bama doesn't get into the end zone until the final 24 ticks of regulation. Fantastic stuff from this Heisman hopeful. And for more on the 86th edition of this storied rivalry, we head back out to Jordan-Hare Stadium. No one with a better vantage point than our guy, Gary Danielson. Gary, another made-for-movie type script in this matchup. We've seen a lot in the history of this rivalry, but not until this one had we seen overtime. Bama able to keep their hopes alive behind a 97-yard drive at the end of regulation, and then 4 overtime winner. With a few moments to digest here, what's your emerging thought out of another classic?
Well, it was so tough for Alabama to get it going. I mean, at the beginning of this football game and basically into about the middle of the third quarter, nothing they called was working. They could not handle anything. They couldn't pass block them. They couldn't run block them. And finally, I think they went a little hurry up and found a little rhythm, but right up until that last drive, it looked bleak. And then they got a little break. Bixby goes out of bounds, and they made Auburn pay with that break. Yeah, in those moments at the end of the game, nobody more prepared than a Nick Saban coached team. But you mentioned some of those inefficiencies early on. This is a team that went for just shy of 700 yards a week ago, Gary, but they're able to survive in a very un-Bama-like fashion here. Many mistakes made here on Saturday. Botched field goal operation, third down struggles, late hits, drop passes. How does this 60 minutes plus inform what you expect to see next Saturday in the SEC title game? Well, it better be a lot better than this. I mean, Auburn's a good football team, especially here at Jordan-Hare. We get that. But, you know, it's going to be another weight class playing Georgia. Georgia's going to see that pass rush and kind of lick their chops. You know, they're going to say, we can put pressure on Bryce Young. We can bring 4. If we need a 5th guy, we can do it, but we think you can do it with 4. So, you know, where's Alabama going to find some points? I mean, Brian Robinson is now hurt. You know, Trey Sanders is, you know, a backup at best right now, and he's in there at the end of the football game. So, you know, this is a hurting Alabama football team. But only got one loss. They're playing for the SEC championship, and, they'll walk in there and say, let's go. And, there's no avoiding Georgia. Georgia's for real this year, and the way things happened to Georgia in the past, national championship game, the SEC championship game twice, down to the 5-yard line game, the Jalen Hurts game, the national championship game with Tua, they want Alabama.
All right, well, that's all coming your way, 4 Eastern Saturday on CBS. Our guy, Gary Danielson, on the call. Gary, thank you as always for the insight. Safe travels.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, let's take another look at that box score here coming out of another thriller. I mean, something about the Iron Bowl, throw out the records, all the puns, all the cliches. They tend to come to light here in 60 minutes between these two. At the end of 60 minutes and then some, it's Alabama 24, Auburn 22. Those 24 points for Alabama, their second lowest output of the season behind only a 20-14 win over LSU a few weeks ago. We got the quarterback postgame.
Bryce, can I just check your pulse, man? Does that number ever change? I mean, this game, you were on the 2-yard line at the end of regulation. Honestly, what was that game like for you?
It was crazy. It was crazy. When you're playing in the Iron Bowl, what else are you supposed to expect? But throughout all the ups and downs, even in that last drive, I have so much faith in my guys. My confidence never wavered. We've been working hard since the off season, and really, when we got the ball at 98, whatever it was, I was kind of happy about it. I knew it was going to be a great moment for us. I have all the faith in the world in my guys and the coaching staff, so I'm happy I was able to lean on them and we were able to come out successful.
What was the most challenging part of this day?
We definitely had some adversity that we had to hit, and I think the biggest thing was making sure that we were, that we combated it together. That was the biggest thing, was making sure that we were all on the same page, whether it's ups or downs. We had some issues offensively, but for us to come together and to really sort those things out together, that was the biggest thing for us.
Hey, go celebrate the first overtime Iron Bowl win ever.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
First ever time the Iron Bowl goes to overtime, and we get into that wonky back and forth 2-point conversion situation. Another conversation for another day. Let's talk about this young man right now. We talk about Heisman moments. Well, we very well could have had one here. Maybe not a singular moment, but a 12-play, 97-yard drive with a $140 on the clock, scoring with 24 seconds remaining. Bryce Young putting the team on his shoulders, leading that drive down the field and keeping all of Alabama's hopes alive. All right, let's dive deeper with our team. Joe Musso alongside Emory Hunt, joined by CBS college football writer Barrett Sallee and the 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden. Gentlemen, let's take a second. Let's take a deep breath. That was all sorts of exciting, lived up to the moniker of the Iron Bowl. Emory, we'll keep it in studio for a second here. What did you feel you learned about Bama today? Because this was not the normal game script maybe we expected.
That they can win any type of game. They can win ugly. They can win pretty. We saw Bryce Young, I think, won the Heisman tonight with that touchdown pass to go into overtime. So we learned that this team can win in a blowout fashion. They can muck it up if you want to, play physical, play dirty, but ultimately find a way to win.
Well, for me, inspirational win. I don't think Bama is a championship caliber team, though. And the reason why I say that, they played against a team that started the backup quarterback, eventually got hurt in the ball game, and they still had issues in, stopping Auburn. And not to mention offensively, they had some issues as well. They lost their best playmaker, but yet and still, I felt like they would be better at the line of scrimmage in the trenches. And when you look at some of the elite-like teams in college football, and I guess you probably can only say there's one legit elite team, they will win the battle in the trenches. So that was very, very disappointing for me, because I felt like Alabama clearly on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they did what they needed to do, but offensively, that offensive line, anytime you surrender, 7 sacks, that's not a good thing. They were able to win because they played against a team that only had 6 wins coming to this ball game. But talking about playing against playoff caliber teams, championship-like teams, they have to get better. But they don't have enough time to get better. The personnel is the personnel. And I felt better about Bama's championship hopes before today's ball game. I don't feel as good seeing what happened, even though they won.
Yeah, B-Mac, same exact thing for me. I mean, Georgia probably got back to Athens in middle of the second quarter of this game, and if they popped on the Iron Bowl, they were licking their chops because this Alabama offensive line was atrocious all day. But here's the thing. 4 SEC games, Alabama has been held under 100 yards rushing. This is Alabama. The last time I checked, they had guys like Derrick Henry, Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson, I mean, on and on and on. Their DNA is still establishing the run, and this team doesn't do it. And Auburn, for those that aren't in SEC country, Auburn has been criticized all year long for not getting aggressive at the point of attack. And they did that in this game. So credit to them. But Alabama's issue is not an issue. It is their DNA. That is who they are. Their offensive line does struggle. So I think right now, yeah, they're out of time. They're going to have a performance unlike anything that we've seen this year to have a chance to beat Georgia.
Yeah, not much time, but plenty of tape to chew on coming out of this one, as we did get our fair share with 4 overtimes between these two. I mean, we're talking about a 20-plus point favorite. It's number 3 versus an unranked. What about this rivalry, guys, causes that disparity to just disappear year after year, Barrett?
Well, I can tell you, growing up around this rivalry, I've been around it for 41 years. It's not intense. It's just tense. Like, that's the thing. It means so much to these players, to the families, to the fans, to everybody, that the fear of losing, especially for the favored team almost every single year, outweighs the joy of winning. And for a team like Auburn, they have a chance to let it loose. They have a chance to take a few more risks defensively because they're playing with house money. So I think when you look at the Iron Bowl, it's different than other rivalries. The Ohio State-Michigan game today, hype, atmosphere, everybody's going bananas. You watch an Iron Bowl, and you're sitting between an Auburn family and an Alabama family, you can tell which team is favored because that fan doesn't have nails by the time the game starts because they're so nervous. And that's just the way this rivalry is.
And this rivalry is more intense when it's being played in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Okay.
For some reason, it's not just about Alabama struggling there, but Nick Saban has struggled as well, going back to his time coaching LSU. I mean, going before today's matchup, Bama lost the last 3 of the last 4 games there, played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So when they play, it's already an entertaining-like matchup, right? Bama, Auburn. But when they play in Jordan-Hare Stadium, that's when things get a bit sticky for Alabama and for Nick Saban. And we saw that once again in today's matchup, but fortunately enough for Alabama, they were able to prevail and come up with a huge, huge big-time win.
You know, for me, I think it's all about familiarity. You know, as much as of a national brand, both Auburn and Alabama is, this is a local game. You see a lot of Alabama players on both rosters. So this game definitely means something because both teams have guys on each other's squad that go back to Little League football and playing against each other. So there's legit bad blood with these two teams. So I think because of its local nature, despite being national brand, that's why this game is so intense, so tight.
Yeah, you got to feel for the Auburn guys because, I mean, you could sense that victory in their stomachs. One stop, one guy staying in bounds, and we're talking a half hour ago, and we're talking about a completely different situation here because this was, again, a thrilling finish between these two teams. Guys, before we get out of here, we do have to roll this thing forward because you're talking about here, and I think everyone's kind of made the point a little bit, a lack of an identity for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And when you're going up against the most difficult defense, most stout defense in the entire country, you better have an offensive identity. That identity this year is not to run the ball down teams' throats. It's not even what we saw last year and air it out with 4 wide. What is the Alabama identity and what do they need to figure out over these next 5 days, Emory?
Well, the good thing about Alabama going up against Georgia does a great job in stopping the run. What Alabama does, they can't run the football. So problem solved. We're not going to run anyway. So I think that's going to be helpful for them in this ball game. Can they air out Georgia? We're going to find a lot about Georgia's 3rd and 4th corner because I think that's going to be the matchup. Alabama will try to spread them out and use their short, quick passing game as a supplement to their run game because the run game won't exist. The run game next week versus Georgia will be Bryce Young being able to escape the pocket and get outside and make plays with his legs.
And I think next week for Alabama, most importantly, they got to get healthy. they've had issues running the football with Brian Robinson, but when he is in the lineup, he is their best bet in being successful in doing so. It took him a while to get things going, mostly because Bill O'Brien wanted to throw the football in a close ball game in the first half. He just basically took away one of his best offensive weapons. But when Robinson is in the game, he's a power back that runs with speed. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. I think he ended up around 70 yards on the ground. We don't know what his status will be, but if he's not in the lineup, good luck. It's going to be very, very difficult. Not to mention, Jameson Williams got ejected. So he's going to miss the start of this SEC championship game next week against UGA. So going against UGA with everybody in uniform healthy was going to be a daunting task. But if you're telling me you might not have a healthy Brian Robertson, you won't have Jameson to start the ball game, that puts more pressure on who? The young quarterback in Bryce Young. I don't know what this line will be next week, but I can tell you this much. I don't care what it's going to be. Give me Kirby Smart and the Dogs.
Yeah, I'm going to probably do that too. But I think if you're Alabama, you take some of the good lessons from this game and you use them next week against Georgia. And I think when they went tempo against Auburn, that's when they started moving the football. And granted, they didn't really move it all that well, but they were moving it better than they did before. And that really helped them down the stretch, because when they got into those two drives at the end of the game, one for the field goal, the second for the game-tying touchdown, they had already been kind of running that tempo throughout the last, 2 and 2.5 quarters. So I think when you spin it forward and look at Georgia, look, you can't let those guys or those rosters move over. You can't let them substitute. And the way to do that, the way to get Jordan Davis tired, the way to get some of these other guys tired, is to just run plays, keep going. Auburn's defense got tired. Georgia's will too. Granted, they have more depth than Auburn, but it's still hard to play 95 plays if you're a defensive coordinator, finding guys to work in and out of that lineup. So I think you take the good lesson from this. If you're Alabama, you run tempo. I don't think it's going to work, but it's worth a shot.
Thankfully for the Tide, they don't ask how, just how many, and that's the 11th win of the season. Now just one win away from another college football playoff, or perhaps one loss away. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, guys. Gentlemen, fantastic stuff as always.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.